So, literally starting right here and just doing this, I could say, what is the height? I'm gonna make it the height, an instance parameter, and say, I'm gonna say depth. Just that alone, right? That's one way to do this. I could take a dimension and go from here to here and say, I want this dimension to report its width. Okay, that makes sense? I could come in here and say, I want the depth to be the REP divided by 2. Now, whenever I bring that in, that width is going to control the depth.
Was the report an instance or a type?
It has to be instance that reports. So when you'll see it like when I make it. So when I grab this, whenever you're making anything, you go to make it. You say instance, and instance means it's going to change all the time, but you want it to report because something else is feeding off of it.
Right.
Okay. So the other one's an instant. This is an instant that reports.
When I was trying to make reporting parameters, it was for the beam, but I got told it was the same concept. It kept saying a reporting parameter can be used only if its dimension references are all to host elements.
So what happens is you put the reference points in. I'll jump into generic model adapter really quick. So in this one, if I wanted to, actually I don't have the depth here reporting, so let's make it reporting. If I come in and I say, give me a dimension, and I accidentally grab, let's say, that point and this point, you have to make sure, I found the cleanest way is to make sure the plane of the adaptive point is selected. So I usually do this when, let me just do it. I do it early. Point. Make adaptive, because yeah, you get that error all the time. It's just when it's just fussy. So I tend to do reference, all of this thing's fussy. 3D snapping, I grabbed here, and now, because I typically want the real length, there's sometimes you might want just the horizontal length, so then I might let it be on the ground plane, but I tend to say, I wanna make a line, and then I'll SW and select the plane of the reference plane. That way it's always dimensioning that line wherever it is, not its projected dimension on the floor, which is, sometimes you want different ones. But so now I come in and if I grab that plane, now it'll allow it to be a reporting. If you have other stuff modeled there, because if you think about it, this thing's always about what's the next skin that's on top. So the first thing it wants to grab is the tallest, is the last skin, but you want to grab the host thing, right? So it's just you can tab through and get it right. I just tend to make sure I do it early. Yeah.
So types can never change unless like you manually do it?
Types, you're then creating types after. So,
Okay.
so when you load it in, I'd say make copy, copy with the rename, you're making different types.
Okay. Sure.
So that's why every time we bring that generic type in, that's why I say rename it, now it's a new type. Now you can bring them all together because they all have their own name, right? They're all classified generic type, but you have blah, 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 whatever little nomenclature. So yes, this does happen. It happens all the time. That little error is, you just gotta tab in or hide everything and get to it, or, okay. So,
Your width is half your height.
right, the span, the height, the depth is half the span, right? When we're talking about 45,
The depth is half the same.
the depth is half the span. So if I was, yeah, anyways. So that would be one way. That's nothing more than that. Like just that alone gets the idea going, right? Now, what would be the difference of this one compared to, remember the whole, what's the difference between this, family, generic model, pattern-based? If I do where I set the points, SW, set, well, I screwed up that one, I gotta go back and check. SW every time. What's the difference of doing this one versus the other way I just did it. If I, anybody remember? The seam, how they relate, right? Because if I just grab the bottom and project, if I'm on a dome thing, there'll be cracks. If I make it on a curved surface and I lift the points up, then it's taking the projected spot, which means these would seam together on an arc, right? Or not. So this is how I did mine. Is I grabbed all these. I just want reference points. Apply. Okay. I wanted this to be up. New one, depth. And we can say instance. Okay, same way I did before. They're set at 0 right now, so I'm gonna give it a distance. I'm gonna do what's my width. Same thing I did before. I wanna make that a parameter. Instance reporting. Now I could say, I want my depth, same way I did before. Reporting divided by 2. There they go. In essence, it's the same thing in some ways, but now if I'm on a weird surface, if I'm on a curved surface, it's gonna project perpendicular, right? But it also gives me some control points up there to work from. I worked this out several different ways when I was doing it the first time. What might be interesting to do is the same logic. So he draws it differently. This was I was trying to figure out, in one of them, in the perspective, like,